meeting of the Bellingham Bellingham Select Board. Mary?
Excellent. Thank you all for getting together today. The item on the agenda is to discuss and approve year-end transfers. What I am presenting is transfer number 3, and a spreadsheet or a PDF file was emailed out to the entire select board earlier today. I hope that you all have a copy in front of you. This is the 3rd set of transfers, so this board has seen this at least 2 times previously. What we are doing is, under Mass General Law, the town accountant is allowed to propose and seek approval for year-end transfers under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 33B. The purpose is to essentially true up the budget at year end. So where there were surpluses in some accounts and deficits in others, we are able to, without town meeting approval, able to move dollars around in order to address circumstances that may have arisen during the fiscal year. These are certainly not uncommon. What you have in front of you is two different sets of transfers. The first chart in the amount of $137,380 is applicable to the general fund. And then below that is a second transfer of $6,500, and that is for the Trash Enterprise Fund. I did ask that our new police chief, Chief Fitzgerald, join us this afternoon, only given the fact that one of the larger transfers, it relates to the police department. But before we get to that one, let me just quickly walk you through the others. In order of magnitude, the first item is a transfer of $3,000 to cover salary expenses in the Veterans Services budget. There is a surplus in the expense side. We are proposing to move expenses up to salaries, and that is to cover some additional hours for Anna's services, the administrative assistant in that office. Second item in the treasurer collector's office is expenses in the professional services area to cover the cost of external printing, third-party printing of bills. We incurred some additional customization costs in setting up the external bill printing for our water, sewer, trash bills, as well as our motor excise, real estate, and personal property bills. Third one in the fire department is, this is to cover the cost of the vacation payout to the retiring chief. The obvious question is, did we also have a vacation payout to the police chief? The answer is yes. However, in the fire department's budget, there is sufficient funding in the expense side of the fire department budget to offset or cover the buyout for the fire chief. So what we are proposing to do is move expense money up to the salary line to cover that payout. The police department was handled a little differently because, as the chief will address in a moment, there were some other cost overruns in our salary lines. So the payout for the police chief was charged to the compensated absences fund and not to the operating budget. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. The next significant one would be in the snow and ice budget. Now, we did not have to go into deficit spending for snow and ice. However, there was a deficit in the salaries line, and it is being offset by the surplus in the expense line. So we're just moving dollars from expenses up to salaries to make that budget whole. And under Medicare, while we still have $13,000 left in the appropriation for FY23 for Medicare, we do have a fiscal year-end payroll that is being processed at this time that includes 2 days for FY23, but across all town departments and across all grant funds. I'm seeking to put some additional funding in the Medicare line in order to cover any unanticipated costs that I'm not aware of for closing out the end of FY23. And lastly, police overtime. There was a significant deficit in the police overtime, and I will turn it over to our police chief to describe briefly what we are seeing, which is unusual in the last 5 years since I've been here. The police department's budget has been spot on, and we haven't had this situation, but I will defer to Chief Fitzgerald to give you a brief description.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me? I got a message that my internet connection is unstable. We good?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So obviously I walked into this and I think all of you at various points kind of told me that the police department had blown the budget this year. They were over budget. They needed to transfer, that sort of thing. So the real quick of how the bulk of this looked like it happened this year is over the course of the year, there's 10 upwards of, I think, 11 vacancies. 5 at the beginning of the year, 5 the second half of the year. So the killer is they hired, and prior to my arrival, sent a small army to the police academy. So that's it's great. We're replacing the bodies, but the bad side is on the salary side, we're paying a salary for somebody that we're not getting. We're not seeing that person for, realistically on the street for almost 8 months. So for 8 months, we're carrying their salary, but on the back end, we're burning overtime, covering the shifts where that person should be. So we're basically spending double time and a half for the first half of the year. There's a little reprieve around January, and then starting up again in the spring, we send 5 more to the police academy. So we're back to basically paying double time and a half. We're paying the salary person who's not here, and we're paying time and a half for someone to replace. Now, 2 things I want to throw out there that I had no control over that are really killers here. Contractually, I can't control time off. There's no provision for me to deny somebody a vacation day, a personal day, a holiday. In fact, the contract language says there shall be no limit to the number of persons off per day. It's in section 7 of their contract. So I've never worked somewhere. I worked in larger agencies and smaller agencies where the chief didn't have the ability to, where there wasn't a limit in place. 4 officers, 6 officers, 8 officers, whatever it may be. So that management wise, that's a killer that we can't control overtime by having a set number of people off. So that's a big one. And then, one of the other issues is their minimum staffing is spelled out contractually and can't be reduced. So, I don't necessarily agree with some of the staffing numbers based on some of what I've seen the month I've been here, but we're obligated to have a certain number of people working all the time. So those 2 things are killers. You couple that with the fact that 10 vacancies, and basically we're paying 10 people who aren't here, and we're paying another 10.
We lost the chief.
Chief, that unstable internet connection just
Yeah.
kicked in.
Okay, are we
That's
good
okay.
now?
I think we got the.
So
the
just
gist of that.
projecting to the future, I don't even have the FY24 number.
Lost you again, chief.
For dialing here. Hold on. Let me how about this? If I kill my video, does that make this any better? Hear me at least.
The picture's a lot better.
There's a huge deficit, and just taking the 21 police officers I currently have who are assigned to patrol duties, who are on rotations on the road, just looking at the statutory training hours, vacation time coverage, holiday coverage, personal days, sick days, comp days, just with a very rough average, I need 7,140 hours of overtime to cover the contractually obligated and post and state obligated functions. And my budget allows for
Chief, we lost you. What your budget allows for. Okay.
I did just take a quick peek, and we did increase the police department's budget for FY24 with respect to overtime. So the chief and I will go through that and take a look. There you are.
that's
I think
that. Continue in the overtime front.
yeah.
We lost you a little bit there, chief. We get the general gist of it. Right. We'll have to take a look at that with our next CFO and make plans for the end of next year and fiscal 25. And we can really look at the numbers. Mary, I guess I have 2 questions. Is the added payout to Jerry and Steve a product of them not taking time that they should have?
Well, I mean, that's probably a legacy question, but in terms of how their contract allowed accrued time. But essentially that when somebody separates, they do earn the ability to be paid out for accrued and unused vacation time. Our HR director sitting next to you could probably explain the nuances of their contract specifically.
Oh, I'm aware. I'm just a little annoyed that we get stuck with that, and I think it was a little disingenuous for that to happen. My second question is relative to their sick bank. What's the hit going to be to the sick bank account?
For the police chief and the fire chief?
Both were pre-1993.
So that would have completed their final payouts.
For the fire chief, he'd already been paid out for his sick time. He'd already been paid out over
Already
The
requested
time.
it.
and several
Yeah.
years ago. And the police chief, he had been buying down, so
Okay,
his was not as big a hit as,
because I was worried it was gonna be a lot worse than that.
I know, yeah,
No,
it was a few years ago. It
Okay.
was very
Oh.
large.
Okay,
this completes our obligation.
that's good. All right.
Okay.
Any other questions from the members of the board?
Mr. Chair, I just have one sort of observation, and that is unfortunately, the police contract was just done, so we're gonna have to deal with 3 years of this ongoing. So something we should probably note is to take a look at that when we go in for the next round of contracts for them. Because I can see what the chief is saying, that if he doesn't have the ability to say, I can only have X amount of people off at a time, we're going to continue to have these ridiculous overtime costs that we're going to have to eat.
Is it safe to say that with all the police details, some of the officers took greater advantage of the fact of taking their time at the end of the year, knowing they were gonna effectively take vacation and get details?
So what I saw was, when I came in June, there's 3 officers who I just met in the past week. They were basically off the whole month of June. Now, when I was in Fox,
Oh, no.
We lost you, chief, if you can hear me.
Yeah. Michael, if I can interject for a second while we wait for the chief. Part of the issue too with respect to your question is you've got to remember the timing of when the bulk of police details present themselves. And it is construction season. It happens during the nice weather. So it's not unusual that we see a spike. But I understand your train of thought. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I only say it because if vacation was taken at Christmas, we probably would have managed the minimum staffing requirements, but when everyone wants to work the details, we took a greater hit. That's all. And you know what? They have the right to do it contractually, so.
Yeah.
To that point too, you know, we like to see our officers doing details within our own community.
Right,
So it, you know, it kind of cuts both ways.
All that said, we entertain a motion.
So moved.
Well, someone want to read the top right? That's this reads, I move to recommend the transfers as presented on this schedule, fiscal year 23, transfer number 3. And there you go, Mike. Now you can do your thing.
Okay, so moved.
Second,
First and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, none. 4-0.
I will take that vote to also.
Yes,
Excellent.
Yes, I did.
Everything on
Sorry, I had
Okay.
to turn my camera off, to get
That's
a
okay. I
better
saw,
reception. That's right.
I didn't see you were unmuted, so I just want to make sure you voted. That's all.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chairman, if I may ask for you to pop by, I need to get an original signature on the schedule.
Will do. All right.
Thank you. All right,
Thank you.
that's all for me. Oh, I do want to address your original question, Michael. So is this the final set of transfers? The answer is I hope so. However, two things. Number one, the Department of Revenue has extended the deadline for these transfers to Monday, July 17th, given that July 15th falls on a Saturday. So we have until the 17th should we need to address any other transfers. I am hoping that I do not. However, I am reconciling our electricity accounts. We did have an issue with one of our solar array vendors during the course of this fiscal year, and I'm trying to finish the reconciliation of those electricity charges. And should I encounter any issues with that, I may need to call one more meeting with
No,
respect to
We
electricity.
have a meeting on the 17th.
Oh, even better. There we
Yep,
go. Perfect.
Yep.
So you may see me on the 17th. How's that?
All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, first and second, Hillary's got that. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the warm weather. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, none. Have a great day.